I'm Ida Tin. I've been in the world of femtech for many years. I co-founded a tech startup called Clue, which is an app for women's health. And then about 3 years ago, I stepped down as CEO. And since then, I've been sort of exploring femtech as a sector more. I've been lucky to travel around the world and meet a lot of the people building femtech around the world. I then realized that I was kind of doing what you would do if you had a think tank. So then I started a think tank called Femtech Assembly. Also trying to get the book out that I wrote 3 years ago that I still think is relevant about femtech. And then I am starting a project together with a German federal agency called Sprint to try and drive innovation within the hormonal space.
Wow, there you go. And many would be familiar, if not, then perhaps it'd be great to get that context. But the concept, the term femtech, that's right, that you coined that term. Tell us a bit about that story at a high level. I appreciate you've probably told the story many times, but I feel like that's particularly important, and perhaps the why and the bit more context there.
So this was back in 2016, and I could see that there was a small bunch, but there were other people building things for female health in the tech world. And the way people perceived what we're doing was that it was very niche and maybe a little bit embarrassing too. And I was like, no, there's something happening, which is a new sector being born in tech. And I wanted to give it a name so that people could see everything we did as a whole. It was also a practical thing that I was pitching to mainly male investors. And I knew that after I had been there, they would have to pitch within themselves, like on the Monday partner meeting. Yeah. And I thought, if I give them a word that's really easy to say, this is going to go smoother. And femtech was a lot easier to say than a pure tracking app. Yeah. So that was the thought. And then I don't think I really had any idea what a word can do.
Yeah.
I've been surprised.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's interesting to think about. I reflect on many of the conversations that I might have had on the podcast or just in the ecosystem generally, and women's health, femtech, healthcare for the female population. It is sometimes kind of through the lens of, well, it's something that we should do because it's underrepresented and it's the right thing to do. But I think, as I've seen through some of your work and your view on it, that it's not just an imperative because it's an underrepresented and data's incorrect and a lot of issues there, but also there's a lot of investment opportunity and a business case there. Walk me through a little bit more about how it's not just the right thing to do, but financially an appropriate thing to do as well.
Yeah, so we have a biological system that's kind of high maintenance. Yeah, there's a lot going on. It takes a lot of money to have women give birth and all the other stuff that we do. And women are ready to spend money to feel well in their bodies. And right now, there's a lot of gaps in the market where they just don't find the products and services or data and science that they need. And for society, it's really expensive that women don't get adequate health care. McKinsey came out with a report last year, and they said it costs the world $1 trillion every single year that women don't get adequate health care. And there's been forecasts for the amount of money we can make in femtech, and that's also said to be $1 trillion industry within a few years. So that makes it a double $1 trillion industry. Yeah. It's like you can make money by investing, and you can save money by investing into women's health.
Yeah. And we're here in Paris at HIMSS Europe. Tell me about what you're sharing up on the stage. I believe it's tomorrow. Is that right? What are you sharing on stage?
So one of the things I'm thinking a lot about right now is how women's health really could be considered as societal infrastructure. We talk about energy grid and pipelines and gas pipelines and stuff like this where our energy travels through as society. But I had the thought, well, our bodies is where our human energy travels through. So women's energy goes through their bodies and into society. And right now, the maintenance and the innovation in that energy grid has been lacking. And I thought, if we could start thinking about women's health as part of really, really fundamental societal infrastructure, maybe we would see that it's really smart to invest into women's health. We know that as society, some of the best investment you can do is in women's health. You will get the money right back. And of course, it's important that women feel well so they can participate fully in society and be part of solving these huge challenges we have as a species and as a planet.
Yeah. One thing I imagine would be important in that kind of reframing around being, societal infrastructure is like what that measure is, what that metric is. And sometimes we go to financial because that's an easy, like there's a dollar amount that's attached to these activities. Are there other metrics or measures, or how, like, and to your point earlier, actually, like if you can put a word to it, then it's a little bit easier to understand and it puts it in a bubble. Are there metrics or measures to be able to say, well, is it beyond financial that makes it a bit clearer, that connection between if we do women's health better, then X, Y, Z?
I love that question. It's one of the reasons why I wanted to start a think tank, is to really tease out that argument beyond the financial. And one of my sort of North Stars is to think, planet life is regenerative. I can't say the word.
Yeah.
How do you say it? You say it.
Regenerative.
Yeah, you say it.
There you go.
You're saying it right
it's
now.
It's even difficult to say.
Anyway, we regenerate.
There we go.
All right. And if we really were to live according to that principle, we would do a lot of things differently. And I'm thinking that as we learn to care for women's bodies, we're actually learning the same thing we need to learn as a planet to live here sustainably. I'm not going to try and say that word again.
Yeah.
And that's a pretty big thing. Like, that's a big shift that we have to go through. And I think there is in my mind, you cannot distinguish the gender sort of gap or like the gender disconnect we have right now and from the disconnect we have with how to live on this planet so that it actually works for the planet. So I think there is some wisdom and some sort of information intelligence that we have as women that the planet needs. And it's not to say we don't need the one that men have. We need that too. But we need the collaboration. Yeah. And right now there's a lot of like dysfunctional, like when women start understanding and feeling their own bodies, they can start communicating to men what it feels like to have a woman's body. And I think men need to actually hear that and understand that and feel that to be part of caring for it.
Yes.
And how would they? Many women don't feel their own bodies very well, and they definitely don't talk well about it. Yeah. So this bridging between genders, I think, is a big part of this shift towards being regenerative.
I love how you think about these concepts, and you mentioned earlier you're working on a book. I was going to say you should totally write a book, but so how?
Just need to
that was my soft plug opportunity for you. But, tell me what you're working on there. Oh, it's out now. Tell me about the book.
So, the book is a little bit a weird creature, to be honest, because it's half telling the story of what it was like to build Clue. And the reason why I want to do that is because there are just too few female founders that have gone kind of far enough on that journey that they can write that book. Yeah. But it's also a very opinionated book about venture capital, about the role of tech in the world, the reason why we need to invest into women's health. And they all kind of tie together. There's also something about leadership, like how do we rethink leadership? And a lot of lived experience, because I never worked anywhere before I started Clue. I have actually never worked anywhere that I didn't create myself. Yeah. So out of my sort of fear, kind of not knowing norms, I created, I think, a quite different organization. So a lot of these leadership ideas, we lived for many years in Clue. Because I thought that was totally natural. And people would be like, this is quite different. I was like, is it? I had no idea. Yeah. So I want to share some of these experiences.
Yeah, amazing. Lastly, we know many people in the digital health community who perhaps might be female entrepreneurs or clinicians or just working in hospital systems at any point in their career journey. As you say, some might be not as far progressed as gone through all those experiences that you have. What advice would you give to females who are in the digital health space who are looking to continue to advance their career?
I would say that if they have spotted an opportunity in the market and they really see a need that isn't being fulfilled, I would tell them to really trust what they see. Because you might be sitting across people who will doubt what you're saying is true because they've never met that challenge. So I think there's something about really believing in your ideas. I mean, gosh, I have a whole book full of good ideas.
And read the book.
But I know the most important thing is just start.
Yeah.
Just start and keep at it.